Hi, my name is Celeste Snel, and today I'll talk about my study experience in Taiwan last semester at Donghai University in Taichung. So the first question, what was the biggest difference between the life in Belgium and Taiwan? Well, where to start? I think you have to imagine a completely different atmosphere. First of all, the air is way more humid than in Europe. The climate is different, the nature is different, also the atmosphere in cities is so different. There's nothing historical in the whole country, which feels kind of weird. You'll know what I mean if you get there. And also, of course, the language is different, the way of transportation is so different. Everybody rides scooters there. The air is mainly in cities is very polluted. That was also something I have to get used to, except for the more rural areas. There the air is completely fine. And also, I think the island life, you still live on an island, that's different, and also the people on an island are different. And also I think the relationship they have with China and the way they are known in the West for that, because of their difficult relationship with China, really has an influence on the way they think, on the way they behave. And one misperception I really have to get out of the world is that Taiwanese are definitely not Chinese. So they are so much kinder, and also the mentality is very different. They are incredibly kind, especially to foreigners, I have to say. But still, they are so sweet. So that was for me one of the few biggest differences. So the second question, what was the biggest difference between the study experience in Belgium and Taiwan? So first of all, Donghai University was a beautiful campus. The campus was gigantic. It was one big nature park, almost, I have to say. And it was quite far away from the city, which was so different from my experience in Ghent, where the campus is really in the city, and you're 10-minute walk or 5 minutes by tram, and you are in the middle of the city. And that's so different in Taiwan, because all the cities are really new, so everything is really spread out, and all those cities are really like million inhabitant cities. So cities are built like that, and also schools are built for that. So it was a really big school, really big property, with a lot of nature, which was really nice. So that was, first of all, the atmosphere. The studying level, when I was in Taiwan, when you study abroad, you really appreciate the level of education in Belgium. The way of studying, also the mentality of Chinese, or not Chinese, I cannot say Chinese, although there were a lot of Chinese students, of Taiwanese students, is quite relaxed. They are quite casual with deadlines, with coming on time to school. Also the way people dress, people just go to class by flip-flops and short trousers or sporting gear. It's all fine. It's like unimaginable to go on your Adidas flip-flops to school. That's just unimaginable in Ghent, which was completely normal there. So that was funny. Also, what else should I say? So the student life. I took the hardest classes, so I had to write a lot of papers. Almost all the exams are replaced by papers. In my case, at least, so I had to write a lot of papers and everything. The student life, it's still different when you're an exchange student than a local student. I noticed that students don't go out that often. I went out to nightclubs a few times, but that's not really a thing they do, mainly also because it's a quite strict Catholic school there. But still, it was nice, the student life. And you experience the student life different as an exchange student than a local student. But the student life was mainly on campus, not really in the cities. People really stayed on the campus because everything was there, from shops to like the dorms and everything. So the student life is mainly on campus, and there's a lot of sports. People do a lot of sports, but and also people go to night markets, which is also nice. But yeah, it's so different from Ghent, and there's not such thing as the Overpoort or something in, at least not in the city where I was. The classes. Let me run through my classes. The teachers are different. That's the first thing I have to say. The teachers are very different. They are, some of them are really good, others of them, also because it was in English, the level of English was sometimes not really good, so that sometimes lowered the level of the class. Which I believe those teachers are really competent, but just in English they couldn't really explain it that well. And sometimes I also noticed that it was a bit unorganized. You have to realize in Arteval everything is perfectly organized, so we cannot complain at all. But overall, I also learned a lot of stuff during those classes, and also cultural differences and everything. So it was a learningful experience. In school activities, well, we had a buddy, but those buddies didn't do really much for us. So there are a lot of school activities for Chinese-speaking students, but for exchange students, there were not a lot of activities for us. In other schools, in other universities, that was different, but on our campus, there were a lot of activities for us. So we mainly organized trips by ourselves around the island, and other places close to Taiwan. And I already talked about the campus, which was beautiful. So the third question: what was the biggest challenge for you in the beginning? Did this change over time to do something else, or did it disappear? Well, the biggest challenge for me when I came there was I was sleeping in the dorm on the school property, because I thought all the exchange students were doing that, which was wrong. All the Chinese exchange students did that, but the international exchange students lived off campus in better facilities. So when I got to the school campus and I saw where I had to sleep, it looked like a Russian army camp. Can I say that? So we slept with 4 people in one bedroom. So we had bunk beds, and we had to sleep on a really, really thin mattress, like bamboo mattress, which was pretty hurtful. And I was so confused because I thought that there would be more international students. So also when I was walking around, I was like also a little bit sad because my sister dropped me off at school, and I wouldn't see her for a couple of months. And just like it sounds really weird, but seeing so many Chinese people just like overwhelmed me somehow. I was walking over the campus and I could only see Asian students, and I was so overwhelmed. And like, yeah, I think that's also the time when I experienced somehow like a culture shock. Although I traveled to Asia a couple of times. I went to India, I went to China, I saw Sri Lanka. So it's not really the Asian culture shock, but just the feeling that I thought I would be the only exchange student frightened me at first. So after a couple of weeks, I slept really bad and I couldn't really get some sleep. So then I decided, just like the other international students, to get a room outside of the campus, which I did, and then it disappeared and it was completely fine. So it disappeared, and I think also in the beginning the language barrier is a problem. But if you learn a little bit of Chinese, that's fine. So it gets better. So did you experience a culture shock? If yes, did you elaborate on that? As I just told before, I did experience a culture shock, I think, when I arrived at campus and I only saw Asian students. But really, how did I cope with that? I think it got better when I saw that there were other international students as well on campus. But after a while, you get used to it, that there are only Asians, because there were not many international students at all. So I also spent a lot of time with local students. I also still have Taiwanese friends, which is really nice. But I think you can just prepare yourself and just imagine that the place where you're going to sleep is not going to be awesome or great or very luxurious or modern. And if you, I think, anticipate on that, and that you will, that there are not that many international students, or at least in my case, then I think it would, I think it would be better. And maybe it was just better to get the room outside of the campus right away, but I didn't know, so yeah. But overall, I'm really positive, and I noticed that a lot of other exchange students really experienced a culture shock when the next day we had to go through a medical check. They checked everything from, they got our blood, they got urine from us, they did an x-ray scan, they took our height, they took our weight, they did eye tests, ear tests, everything. It was in a crowded room where we all had to do that, with wait in line with other 500 students or something from our school. And I knew that a lot of other international students saw that as like a huge culture shock, like what is this, and like overwhelmed by all those students who were there. But I was already happy to see other international students. So yeah, and I stayed positive. I think staying positive is the best thing to do. So did you encounter problems with the language barrier? Then again, Taiwan is not China. Just like small countries like Belgium or the Netherlands, when you're a small country, you have to be able to work together with other countries and be internationally oriented. So also in Taiwan, a lot of people speak English or even a little bit, and they will always try to help you with the littlest English they know, and otherwise they'll point it out, or they'll take Google Translator. So when ordering food, that can sometimes be a challenge, the language barrier, but if you have Google Translate with you, you'll be completely fine. And also if you learn Chinese, you can understand a little bit the characters and order food, and they will be gladly to help you. So a lot of people speak English, a lot of street vendors and so on don't, but if you're kind and thoughtful, and they will always be so willing to help you, or at least in my experience. So yeah, sometimes you experience a language barrier, but they speak a lot of English, so that's mostly fine. So can you pin down one thing that you miss about Taiwan while you were back in Belgium, and what was the thing you missed most of Belgium in Taiwan? Well, surprisingly, I'll answer the last question first. I really, 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 really miss fresh air from Belgium in Taiwan. Clean air was really a problem in my in the city where I lived. It was really polluted, and because of all the street vendors with their gas and a lot of scooters, there was not much clean air in the alley where I lived. So I really had breathing problems at one point, which was really unpleasant. But once you get out of the city, that's way better. But the smog is really, really a problem. And I really miss clean air and vegetables. I really miss vegetables. I was just looking forward to eating like a really basic dish, like potatoes, just some vegetables and a sausage. That was the thing I dreamed of. And chocolate, also a little bit, but I think mostly just like Western vegetables and air was the things I miss the most about Belgium. The thing I miss about Taiwan when I was back in Belgium, I miss the atmosphere. I miss the fact that Taiwan is such a special island. You have so many things to do. Also, Taipei is a lovely city, and I also had some friends over there, so I really missed them when I was back. But also, like, being able to hike in such beautiful subtropical nature was amazing, and also the beaches in the south, and the whole traveling experience, being able to travel each weekend and see the most wonderful places of the island. That was really something I missed because there were so many things I still wanted to see. Okay, next question. If you could do Erasmus again, would you do it again in Taiwan or another country? If in another country, which one and why? The countries I really wanted to go to Erasmus were Japan, South Africa, and New Zealand, but unfortunately they were not on the list. If they would be, that would be my go-to choices, but unfortunately they were not. And I think Taiwan was the most challenging country for me, because I already been to China and to India, and I wanted to go as far as possible and really challenge myself. So Taiwan, I challenged myself, and I really liked that. So with the options I had, I think I would go back to Taiwan or maybe India, because I really liked India when I was there a couple of years ago. But I think Taiwan it was challenging for me, and I haven't visited yet. And it's such a special island also because of its history and its terrific nature. So do you think you would return to Taiwan for living or working there? Ooh, that's a hard one. I really liked my stay there in Taiwan, and also for the months I was there, that was lovely. And I think if I would return to Taiwan, I would definitely be able to live in Taipei. I love Taipei. Maybe for a couple of years, I would love that. For living or working there. Taichung, I'm not so sure. That city, there was not that much to do, but still with the public transportation, which was awesome there, you can travel within hours from north to south, and it was so well organized. So yeah, I think I would go back, definitely. And also the places I haven't been able to visit, I would definitely visit them. And I'm sure I will return to Taiwan within maybe a couple of years. And maybe also work there. Who knows? After this experience, would you recommend others to go on Erasmus to Taiwan? What are your main tips for studying in Taiwan? Definitely, I would recommend to study in Taiwan. It's such an amazing country. It's also a little bit undiscovered. It's not really touristic yet, which is really nice because all the touristic venues are completely free, which is so weird, but really nice. Also, public transportation is awesome. It's so handy to get around as a tourist because a lot of things are explained in English. It's really easy to find your way around. Of course, you will experience some difficulties with the language sometimes that that is really possible. But my main tips would be get a Lonely Planet and make sure you know a little bit about the country before you go there, because the history of Taiwan is really complex, and it's really nice to know a little bit of things and things you wanted to see, because you'll notice that your time there is really limited. So make sure you have a little bit like plans and trips in your head you really want to do, because when you're there, time will fly by. And even I did almost a trip every weekend, and still I haven't seen the whole island, and I wish that I was prepared a little bit better and knew a little bit more about the country when I got there, even though I already looked into it. Second of all, learn Chinese. We had it in night lessons, like night classes, where I learned Chinese, which was hard sometimes, but when you go to stands and like night market stands, and you can explain yourself a little bit what you want, and they will really, really, really appreciate it, even though they cannot really understand you. But they will really appreciate when you try to speak Chinese, and that also forms a bond that you're willing to be interested in their culture, and so that you're interested in their culture and you're really trying. They really appreciate that. What else? Other tips. Don't stay around your international, don't stay too much around those other internationals. It's really within your comfort zone to always be around your international study buddies. But also engage with the local students. They are really nice when you get to know them. Maybe they're a little bit shy, so also know the cultural differences and how to anticipate on that, because when you have to do group assignments with Asian students, you'll find it extremely hard, because they are so used to having a leader who tells them what to do. So when you have to brainstorm with them, it's the hardest thing to do, because you have to come up with all the ideas and they just nod yes. So know cultural differences, know how to work with them, and also know a little bit about the history. They also really appreciate that. What else would I recommend? There's so many things to recommend. Mainly travel. Just do it. The food is also, actually living there is not that expensive. Mainly your main costs will be traveling, but just do it. Just go there every weekend. Go on a trip every weekend. It's so worth it. So I guess it's about that. I hope you learned a little bit more about my experience, and I had a really great time there. And I hope you're also excited to go there. And if you still have questions, you can always ask me. Bye.